Zamsky did a video on Budapest a few years ago, but I don't agree with him. My experience was different, and it's because I didn't stick to tourist areas too much. It is a city full of tourists and expats, but if you stick to areas where they don't flock, then you should notice the local Hungarian women paying attention to you. Like him, I actually met more people from other countries there than locals, and because they're usually on holiday and enjoying themselves, you can befriend them easily. Still, the Hungarians can be friendly, and if you're fit, good-looking, and well-dressed enough, you will notice local women staring at you. But the main problem you'll have is breaking the ice with them, as some don't come across as friendly. They don't smile much, even when they're being friendly during conversation. Even the men can be so. Yet, if you're just being nice, they will reciprocate. I don't really play game, but can imagine many of these women being defensive if a man should try and approach them in most situations. You can develop friendships with Hungarians, and some women do say hello and try to be friendly on the street, especially if you look lost or struggling with things like the public transport system or currency. Sometimes women who are clearly with their partners were even keen to befriend me. I heard one of them even nagging their partner in English for some strange reason, while they could have stuck to Hungarian instead. I found the young ones can be very attractive, although these women all seem to get bigger the older they get. If you've tried Hungarian food, you'd understand why anyway. Their attitude usually remains quite feminine and submissive. At my hotel, some of the women working there were smiling at me, eyes even beaming, almost sexual, but I rarely experienced that outside. One bumped into me at a bar, her hips against mine. I turned around, and she said sorry, then lewdly stared at my crotch. I even got a hunch that it was all on purpose actually. If you're from a wealthier country and look well off, they will be looking at you. Even overheard those girls at the hotel saying big money once, and then one staring over at me while I was waiting for my cab to the airport. I was even surprised to see this short, ugly little man, he looked Mongolian, walking down the street, and holding hands with a tall curvaceous blonde. She was voluptuous. The biggest hurdle is getting into the country, the people, their culture, even community. If you're working there long term, socializing, getting to know the locals, and language, then getting into a relationship with a Hungarian woman is possible. But for a visitor, you'll mostly end up casual acquaintances with these women. They're wary with foreigners and need time to get used to you. They seem to mostly stick to their own families, social groups and circles, from school, university and work, then mind their own. I started talking to one smoking outside a bar one night. She was polite enough and friendly because I was, but I could tell she just wasn't completely comfortable about it. It's not easy to hit it off with most of them immediately. Even if you do find a girl willing to play for the night, they'll be trashy anyway, and not worth a relationship to begin with. There are even prostitutes walking around the streets at night that will approach you, but I'm not getting into that. They're gypsies anyway, and at the bottom of society there, the shy Asian boy won't get very far. These women can be timid and effeminate, and like men to be masculine. A receptionist at a place once seemed to find me attractive, but was a little shy around me at first, then became quite talkative and warm after a few visits. I found another one very attractive and she caught me staring at her. She was clearly touched, but I didn't go for it, as she was in a work environment anyway, and didn't feel comfortable about it. The most beautiful Hungarian woman I saw abruptly walked right up to me on the tram, and sat right opposite me. There wasn't that many empty seats, so I wasn't sure if it was deliberate. Still, I was a little startled, yet she just stared straight at me, cold-faced and emotionless. I could tell she was a business-minded woman really. When it comes to relationships, she knew her worth and wasn't going to let anyone waste her time either. Of course, sometimes they just want attention, even flirting with you in their own way. I doubt the exotic factor is on their minds, unlike other countries. Like in Northern Europe, there is a Chinese community in Budapest too, a Chinatown area centered around the Monori Center. Their community and businesses mostly congregate there. They're mostly mainland Chinese and Mandarin speakers. The country itself is very open to trade and relations with China. Other than that, you'll mostly see them running the Asian restaurants around the city that sell to locals and tourists alike. I didn't see much integration, just like other parts of Europe as well, although you might encounter an Asian male white female couple at times. I wouldn't say it's common. You should still notice more women interested in you than Western Europe at least, but the people just aren't very open at first. They come off as cold and indifferent often, but really just need time. If you can establish yourself among them, then it should be much easier. There might be the odd Hungarian that are interested in Asian culture. I've met some that were learning Chinese, even one could speak Korean, and was married to a Korean man, but again, this was an odd exception. One AMWF couple that I spent some time around didn't leave a good impression. She was very submissive to him at least, but I didn't see any love in her eyes, or gestures in her mannerisms to suggest it. They had 2 young children, she didn't work, and I later realized he was even giving money to her family, and buying them gifts often. I met some Asians that was there for over a year for work and were still more friendly with other foreigners than locals. One even told me that they're usually quite rude. When I mentioned that to a cab driver, he laughed a little and said some can be. From what I can tell, the women can be difficult at times, nagging their partners, but they don't yell at them or get physical, at least on the streets.